Lightyear is directed by Angus MacLane and stars the voices of Chris Evans, Keke Palmer, and among others. And in this story, it is basically the spin-off sort of meta spin-off that was inspired, that's set in the Toy Story universe, that essentially is the real life inspiration for the toy of Buzz Lightyear, and that basically this is a movie that's within the movie of Toy Story that Andy essentially is watching, that he gets really inspired for the actual Buzz Lightyear action figure toy. Sorry, and basically in this story it deals where Buzz Lightyear, he's a space ranger that after some things go down to where he's essentially trying to achieve himself with doing light speed and everything, he ends up essentially having to work with a group of misfits after he gets marooned on a planet, and he's also getting hunted down by the villainous Zurg. Now here's a little backstory. Now this is a film that I was actually interested for a little bit because I've actually been a big fan of the Toy Story franchise for a long time, and it's actually what I consider my favorite of the Pixar films, and they're the ones that really got me into Pixar as with their animation and everything, and they really, were able to blend a whole lot of stuff with mixing a lot of the emotional and very heartwarming things that both, like, I think a lot of older crowds and also like kids could enjoy too for the longest time. And so those movies had a place in my heart growing up with them, and when I heard news that they were going to essentially do a film like this, where it's essentially a spin-off, so to speak, it got me interested, but it also kind of made me wonder, like, if it was already, trying to be like trying to be like a more like modern take of what they were doing with the Buzz Lightyear Star Command cartoon that came out in the early 2000s. That also had its own movie that Tim Allen actually voiced the character in the movie. And so I was kind of interested with it, and I kind of see what the approach they were going, where it's doing the whole real life version of Buzz Lightyear that's set in the movie. That's in like a movie within the movie. And upon finally seeing it, I can say that while I do really love the other Toy Story films, and while this one definitely isn't bad, I did say that it could have been a whole lot better, but I still thought it was likable. So with that being said, with the pros, I will say that the voice casts were very good, especially Chris Evans. He really gives a whole lot of, heartwarming parts in the movie where he's, trying to fix his own mistakes, because the movie does blend a whole lot of great themes about fixing your own mistakes throughout the movie, and I do think that worked well with both his character and also with Keke Palmer's character throughout the film, and the message that they're trying to go with that vibe, it really did work pretty well with it. I have some issues as far as some other things writing-wise, but I think that was one of the other things I really enjoyed, and the rest of the cast I thought were good too, including Keke Palmer. I thought she was really good. She definitely had her moments where, her chemistry with Buzz I thought really was pretty heartwarming, and also, can be fun at times. And I also got to really enjoy the other like little side characters, like the cat Socks. I think is the biggest standout, and I think he's definitely the one that has like the biggest laughs, and he's very cute at times, and he's definitely a scene stealer. And then I also really enjoy the other one, Darby Steele, the kind of older woman that's kind of like the short older woman. She's voiced by an actress that I remember seeing in Orange is the New Black, and I thought she was funny at times. I thought she was pretty good. And there's some other things too I gotta really appreciate the most. The biggest one being with the animation in this. I think once again Pixar doesn't hold back. They have their animation spot on as usual. Especially they went for a more grander scale on this compared to what we see with the Toy Story films, where you're doing a whole lot of space exploration and doing a whole lot of that very sci-fi feel of it. I think really works. Now, I could have probably seen the movie in IMAX, but I'm glad I've seen it at least on the big screen, because you could tell that a lot of the animation they do and a lot of the scope is there if you see it on the big screen. And the other things too, I got to appreciate like the little callbacks they do that we would see in the Toy Story films. I thought were pretty fun. Some of the lines they do, some of the things that we know from Buzz that comes into play, I thought was fascinating. And there is some nice momentum that I thought, well, I'm kind of mixed on this. Like, okay, when they bring in Zurg, who is the main villain of the entire of Buzz Lightyear's arch enemy in the series, I was very interested at first what they were doing with it, because they did feel like they were trying to put layers on top of it with the villain. But I did have a problem in that it is definitely something that we've already seen before. While it was derivative, it still, I think, really had a good purpose. But at the same time, it felt like it was very rushed, and they very gloss over like his backstory and everything like very fast, and he's not really given a whole lot of time to do. And so that's one of my biggest like downfalls. I'll get to some of my cons, but I do like the way Zurg is. He looks in this, and some of the things that they actually draw into as far as his backstory, I found interesting in its concept wise. I do also really appreciate the way that they make it to where there's actually a very emotional thing that happens in like the beginning of the film that I thought got me really grasped into it, and it has something to do with doing the whole light speed thing, and I'll leave it there because there's some spoilers I can't really get into, but I will say that first like 30 minutes I think was really not only emotional, but it really showcases a lot of the thing of where it really showcases where the movie was really going at first for a while. Now, with that being said, though, as much as I really got into it, and it does also redeem itself toward the end with the whole resolution we get with Buzz's arc in this, I thought was the way it played out. I thought was pretty good. But this is where I now get into my cons, and as much as I was really getting into the movie for at first for a while, I can say that as the movie kept going, it did feel like it was suffering from a lot of been there, done that, doing a lot of standard sci-fi stuff that we've seen and done. In fact, the biggest comparison I can think of this movie the most, actually there's two of them. There's Interstellar that deals with some certain things that I can't get into, but if you've seen Interstellar, you pretty much know what I'm kind of talking about. And then there's also some stuff that they kind of play into with, what was it? There's another film, let's just say that there's something that comes up that is reminiscent of the Lego Movie Part 2. And I think that it being already presented in that movie, it kind of seems like they were kind of already using an idea for it, and it was done a whole lot better, I think, in that movie. But I'll leave it there. And then some other things I really didn't care too much was some of the comedy in this I thought was at times kind of forced and wasn't quite funny in certain points. Mainly some of the other side character that's from Taika Waititi. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce his name. He's the director of Thor Ragnarok and the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder. And he's a really talented guy, and I do like him as an actor, and I like his comedy and stuff. But I did feel like some of his lines they give him are pretty, not so great. Well, some of his humor they give to him is not so funny at times. And there's this weird, there's this running joke that has to do with a pin that I thought was not really funny, and it has a payoff, but I didn't really. It was one of those where it was very stale from every time they kept going back to it. And then there's some other things too where the movie doesn't really spend a whole lot of time, like I said, with the villain with Zurg, because they're trying to add layers to the villain in this, but it seems like they lack a lot when it comes to trying to spend as much focus on him as they are with doing some other things. And the other thing that I think the movie does lack is the fact that throughout the movie, even though it is prominent in the film, I did feel like we could have seen a whole lot more of Buzz actually, working things on his own, because there are quite a few times where Buzz has to get himself saved from a lot of his comrades, and it felt like it was overdone. And they do this constant, it's another running joke that kind of does. I don't really think it goes anywhere, where he's constantly getting grabbed by this kind of like tentacle looking thing on almost a lot of scenes. And so I thought that was kind of overdone. And every time I kept seeing it, I was just like, man, he's got to get to it somehow. He's got to eventually, get rid of that thing. But, those are some just minor things. That was just some of my other big issues I felt like did kind of hold the movie back. And, the movie definitely felt like it lacked a lot of stuff that we could have really explored a whole lot more with Buzz in this one. As far as, like, maybe could have seemed like some of his, like, earlier years, so to speak. Because it really seems like this one, it almost felt like he was already kind of a seasoned space ranger, to where he's already, been in this for a while, and we don't really get to know much about him as a character, so to speak. And so, I mean, that's kind of more of a nitpick, but at the same time, it's just more of like, okay, if you're trying to give us a movie about Buzz Lightyear, you want to try to make us feel something a little bit more that's closer to him, and other than the whole, like, find his own mistakes as a flawed character thing that I like, I did feel like it lacked other areas that they could have spent a whole lot of focus on. And, it just feels like there was some things that they probably maybe had in mind with the film, and they never really embellished the idea with it. And so, well, and it also makes it feel like the movie was kind of feeling rushed, because especially when we get to the third act, it almost seems like they tried to, give it all out and go for this grand epic climax. And while it can be fun at times, especially with the way it plays it out with the animation and everything, and the way that the characters are finally being able to come together and everything, it did feel like it wasn't as exciting and everything because it all feels very short-lived. Well, and from what I heard with the movie too, is that it's not really doing too well box office wise, and I think that if the movie does well enough to where it'll probably grant a sequel, we may see more of those stuff that we enjoy from Buzz. But for right now, I think that it did hold it back from being really as great as I thought it would be. And so, with that being said, I'm going to give the movie, and with that being said, I do find myself at least liking it, and the whole like fun exploration stuff and the adventurous thing, and some of the stuff that that really does work in the movie. And with that, I'm going to give the movie a high average Joe on the Film Freaks meter. For those of you who have also seen Lightyear, let me know in the console what you thought about it, and thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.